And I assume that you guys love Stephen King as much as we do, but yes. And the town of Castle Rock obviously occupies a very special place. It's sort of like the world capital of nightmares and dreamscapes in Stephen King's multiverse. And so to be able to tell a story, an original story set in that world that brushes up against some of the kind of best loved characters and icons from the books. And as you guys saw, to be able to write a story that ropes in Shawshank Prison, which is like, you know, probably the most famous and iconic prison in American letters, is pretty amazing.
Well, so speaking about that, what can you say about how Shawshank fits into this first season?
So Shawshank, as you guys may know, is quite close to the town of Castle Rock. And basically, our season ropes in Shawshank Prison when Henry Deaver, who's played by tremendous André Holland, sitting down there, is brought back to Castle Rock. He's a lawyer, and he's brought back to Castle Rock because of an unusual case at Shawshank Prison. It involves Bill. That guy.
That can't be good news, that's all. I'm just guessing. Well, and so for the actors, what was it like the first time you actually stepped foot on Shawshank? Whether you were either filming there or just saw the set and location?
Can we say what prison, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so we shot in the West Virginia Penitentiary, which is this Gothic prison built during the Civil War. And supposedly it's one of the most haunted places in America. And it's like, you walk in there and you understand why. It's like, and we shot there, and my character is in prison there. And like being in this prison, we shot at the solitary confinement section, or the solitary wing. And I'm sitting in this cell, and the cell is like no bigger than one of these squares here. There's like hardly room for bed, and there's actual grave engravings and graffiti from actual prisoners sitting in these cells, and I'm playing a prisoner sitting there. So like it really helped me get into the mood, but it was horrifying just the fact that people have spent years in those brutal conditions. Yeah, I don't really believe in ghosts, but there was something off with that place.
Did you get the chance to shoot there this weekend?
Yeah, I shot there a little bit. Without giving too much away, Bill and I spent a little time there together, as a matter of fact. And I can attest to the fact that it was indeed quite creepy.
Well, and Sissy, Bill, and Melanie, the three of you have actually previously appeared in Stephen King properties. What is it about his work that kind of appeals to you and makes you want to dive back into this world again?
Well, I was afraid that I might never have the opportunity to do something as twisted as this. And it's, you know, it's kind of a homage to Stephen King, and I certainly owe Stephen King a lot.
As do I.
I think my Stephen King project is probably the least known.
Rose Red.
Yeah. But the thing, I think my favorite thing about his writing is just how clearly drawn the characters are. You just always get a very good sense of who people are, and there's never a thing where you're like, I don't think this person would behave that way or respond this way. It's very consistent, and that's something that's very appealing as an actor. And you know, the other thing that was so wonderful about this script was it's very true to the traditions of Stephen King, and there's a lot of that threaded in, but Dusty and Sam have such a clear voice as well, and are such amazing storytellers, so it felt like a very sort of clear narrative coming from a couple of different directions. It's pretty special.
Well, Sissy, looking specifically to Carrie, was there something in particular that you remember about that experience that you took kind of throughout your career that's helped you along the way that you can speak to?
Was anything about Carrie?
Was there anything in particular from that experience that you kind of taken, especially for a project like this, when you go back into the Stephen King world? Was there anything particular about that filming experience that you've taken with you throughout the years?
Oh, I haven't been able to shake that film off for 40 years. I get to have my period every year for some me, this role in Castle Rock is certainly very different than that, but so no, I don't really know how to answer that question.
Well,
So the answer is I don't know.
but it's okay. We're still saying but Ruth and Henry, they have a complicated relationship. What can you say about that mother-son dynamic? Me? But both of you.
You want to go first?
Ladies first.
Well, I don't have a complicated relationship with my son Henry. I'm very clear about the fact that he's my boy and I love him and I'm proud of him and I'm happy to see him. And there are extenuating circumstances, though, having to do with his childhood that haunt Ruth, I think, and are very upsetting. But now I think they're just trying to reconnect and you probably know more about this. You know more about this than I do. Ruth is kind of living in her own little world, so I'm having a wonderful time with you.
I'm having a wonderful time with you too. Yeah, my character does have a bit of a complicated relationship, not only with his mother, but with a lot of people in the town, because of these extenuating circumstances that have affected Henry, right? And so a lot of what we come to understand throughout the series, throughout the 10 episodes, what we see is a person trying to reconcile that, which I think is really fascinating, and it's what drew me to the part. I mean, the writing on this show, the pilot of it is probably the best pilot that I've ever read in my life, and so that's really what attracted me to it. And every week, it just keeps getting better and better and better. The characters deeper and deeper and more complex, and getting to untie those knots with somebody like this is a dream come true.
We have fun.
Did you guys do anything in particular before filming started to kind of grow that bond? Did you guys go out to group dinners, anything in particular?
We all saw our therapist.
Did the therapist advise you to take the show, or did they advise you to run in the opposite direction?
I think they said run.
But on the other hand, maybe it helps them the next few years. They've got some material to work with that way. Bill, given the mysterious nature of your character, how much did the writers actually tell you up front?
Not all that much. I tried to get as much as I could out of them, when they first sort of reached out to me about the project, I was sort of hesitant because I didn't read the script or anything. Everything was sort of kept under locks and the secrecy around it. And I just did it in Pennywise, and for some reason, and I didn't want to, for some reason, there's this teaser trailer that was on YouTube for Castle Rock, and Pennywise was as a title character being on the TV show, and I was really confused. So I'm there's going to be a TV version of the character I just did. So I was a little bit hesitant going into the project because I just did it, and it was so I just didn't want to. I wasn't too familiarized with the world, and then I read the pilot, and just like André said, it's spectacular. It really captivated me, and the character is so I love the character. It's just so mysterious. And then I met Dusty and Sam, and we had an hour and a half conversation, and I left that meeting going I really want to do this. I really want to do this. It's just something completely different. I mean, obviously it's the same sort of genre and true to the themes of Stephen King, but the characters couldn't be further away from Pennywise, and it's just so much fun for me to challenge myself and do something because the character is mysterious and he's dark, and he's sort of a fringe character. He's not he's very different from who I am, right? And I just love to play characters where I can sort of transform and become something that I'm really not in real life. So it's a really special project.
Well, I think part of the joy of writing for actors like these is that you also can let them help you find the nuances of the character. And I think in every case, with every actor on this stage, we had a really strong idea of who the character was and where they were going, what their journey was over the course of the first season. But working with these guys has profoundly shaped the nuances and the direction, ultimately even sometimes where the character's going, because you get to see what they're doing and you get to hear their thoughts about how they're getting inside of these characters, and it really transforms the way you think about the writing as well.
When you guys were doing the initial casting for the show, were you looking for people who had been in Stephen King universe, or did you actually get his kind of writing, or was it something that just happened?
Jack Nicholson down there somewhere.
It honestly wasn't that specifically, but there would be these moments where we would say, oh, and it'd be incredible to have someone like a Sissy Spacek-like actor, as if that's a category that, no, there's just Sissy Spacek. And so it's so incredibly gratifying to put this cast together. Honestly, it's a dream for us. I mean, Dusty's absolutely right. It's like these actors teach you as much about the character as you, as a writer, invent them yourself. You're sort of co-creators, and so it's hugely exciting for us to get to live in this world, this sort of Stephen King sandbox, but also to get to do it with these brilliant actors has been a total joy.
Well, and Melanie, Molly is a real estate agent in Castle Rock, and I imagine that is not an easy job considering everything that has happened in that town. What can you say about what kind of a woman she is? Is she honest in her approach, or is she very manipulative?
I mean, I think she's hoping that people don't ask too many questions because every house, you know, there's a history, something horrible has happened everywhere. So she's just trying to do her best to put a positive spin on it. She's a very interesting person. It's a super weird job to choose in that town, but respect to Molly. She's not one to make it easy for herself.
Well, and your real life mother is actually a real estate agent as well, correct?
Yes, my mother is a real estate agent.
So did you
in
get
a small town?
Did you get any pointers from her? Does she have any advice for what your character should be doing to actually sell these hard to sell real estate properties?
No, I didn't get advice from my mother.
I mean, I guess it's a little bit specific with Castle Rock, considering all of the troubles there. I'm guessing most real estate agents don't have that kind of expertise.
Yeah, I don't know how many murder houses she's sold. I'm gonna go home and call her up and be like, tell me about the murder houses. How'd you sell them?
Well, given the vast array of Stephen King books, is there any kind of characters from his novels or short stories that you're looking to bring into Castle Rock?
Yeah, well, you know, part of the approach from the beginning was that we were going to tell an original story set in the Stephen King universe that kind of brushed up against the iconic locations and some of the characters that we all know and love from the books. And so I think that we've taken an approach where actually everyone on this stage is playing an original character who we hope really embodies the spirit of Stephen King. But then these guys all brush up against, in some really important ways, some of the characters that we know. So in the first season, for example, Ruth is in a relationship with Alan Pangborn, who was the sort of legendary sheriff of Castle Rock, played by Scott Glenn. And we were really interested in looking at what does it mean for the legendary sheriff of Castle Rock, who kind of presided over the dark ages of this town, to still be here, and what does it look like for that guy to kind of be a lion in winter, looking back on the dark history of what he watched.
And then I think even in the construction and imagining these new characters who occupy this world and this story, there are a lot of ideas and tropes and themes that recur throughout Stephen King's library that we tried to metabolize and incorporate into the storytelling. Like, nobody had a good childhood in Stephen King, nor in our show. There's a lot of traumas of childhood revisiting the adult, and so part of what was fun for us as just fans of the material was to return to the books and almost to engage in this like wonky kind of book club together, and to try to get to the heart of what has compelled Stephen King for 4 decades, and to try to reimagine it for a TV audience now.
But you know, I think that it stands on its own. If you're not a fan of Stephen King, if you haven't seen his movies, if you haven't read his books, I think it still works on its own.
Thank you, Sissy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, that was always absolutely the intention too, is that we wanted to both reward fans like us, people who know every deep cut reference to Stephen King, and fans who love the iconic films, and also to be able to bring this story to a new audience and to people who maybe weren't as familiar with the stories of Stephen King, and maybe they sort of feel like they're getting a little bit of a touch of Stephen King, but really what we're doing is bringing them into the kind of world and the feeling and the tone of something that Stephen King has been creating for a very long time.
Well, I know you guys mentioned that you did some research by rereading some of these books. Without spoiling specifically, was there something, do you have like a reading list that you'll provide for viewers? Like if you want to kind of be prepared for Castle Rock season
God, it sounds like homework. No, there's no bibliography, but no, we did. It was, I mean, and it's a big library, as you guys know. So that was like very daunting to try to, but really fun too to return to the books. But Shawshank is really important in this season, so we all went back and revisited different seasons, which is like up there on the Mount Olympus to me, and part of what was really cool, I don't want to spoil anything, because there are a lot of kind of Easter eggs and deep cuts and references and crossovers, but it was very fun to be able to sit in a room and say, wow, I wonder what would happen if this character were to cross paths with the world of our storytelling, and then be able to do it. That's very cool.
Well, so for the actors, do you guys do any particular reading outside of the scripts to get into the tone of Castle Rock, or did you just go by the scripts?
No.
Just went by the
Actually, the thing besides the script that drew me to it was Dusty and Sam. I mean, for my character, there was some really special circumstances that I just loved and couldn't, and that little nugget of information that they shared with me the first time I met with them was what intrigued me, and I've done a lot of research about that little nugget.
Yeah, so same for me. I read Needful Things, set in Castle Rock, and then I can't really tell you what I researched without really spoiling too much with the character. But I had, based on a conversation that we had, Dusty and Sam sort of sent me things to read, and I sort of delved deeper into sort of the psychology behind where my character is to kind of figure him out.
I read Carrie 5 times. Does that count?
I think that counts. It certainly allows for bonus points, I would say. André and Melanie.
I like how you're acting like you're doing me a favor. Yes, I also did some research about things I'm not allowed to talk about. Dusty and Sam sent me some things, and I listened to them. I listened to some podcasts. Honestly, there's so much to unpack in the scripts. Each script is so complex and dense, and there's so much going on, and I would just want to read every script 5 times. So I'm historically a fan of Stephen King, so I feel like it's kind of in my DNA at this point, because I have been reading him since I was a tiny child, and I should not have been reading him. And then otherwise, yeah, it's just sort of going through the scripts and just every week being like, seriously, I have to do this? And then being like, oh my God, I get to do this. A combination of those 2 feelings.
And for me, I play a death row attorney, and so a lot of my time I spent speaking with some attorneys who work in that arena. One of the most sort of moving parts of the research for me was meeting a guy who had recently been exonerated. He was recently released from death row after spending 35 years in Alabama's death row for a crime he did not commit. And just sitting and talking to that guy and understanding what his experience was like, and at the same time trying to understand what it is that would draw a person to the profession that my character is drawn to, I found really illuminating and moving, both as an actor and also just as an individual. So, yeah.
Have you had to do a lot of legalese dialogue so far?
You know I can't tell you that. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, that feels like that's one of the things me.
Maybe a little bit. Maybe I had to do a little legalese, but.
By the way, we're gonna definitely want to get your questions. So if you have any questions, line up at the mics, and we'll get to you guys shortly. For the actors, without spoiling anything, for the rest of your castmates you haven't worked with, is there one particular character relationship you'd like to see develop at some point over the season that has not appeared on screen yet that you can kind of preview? Castle Rock.
There's a dog I really like.
Is the dog gonna be okay? I think that's also
No spoilers, but yeah, but we needed a really good dog actor.
I think it's hard to say that without spoiling too much, because we're like halfway through. So if we give away a little bit, like, oh, I really want to work with that person, you know that we haven't worked in the first 5 episodes yet.
Okay. Is there something that you can say in terms of what was the most challenging scene that you've done so far without actually spoiling what the action was? Please.
I had to clean a lot of 19 trout. And that was, I was up to my elbows in fish guts all one day, while having a lovely scene with my son. That was.
By the way, can I ask, had you cleaned a trout before? Because that was like professional level trout cleaning.
I did that day. When I was a child, when I was about 5, with my cousin, I cleaned 40 little tiny fish, but I left the guts in a lot of them, so I lost my job.
Wait, so were these real trouts or prop trouts?
Well, they were prop trouts, but they were real trouts. But
No trout was harmed during the filming of Castle Rock.
We had them I did a wonderful job cleaning them, and we fried them up and had them for the crew at lunch.
That's full service.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a difficult things?
Were you talking about me?
Anyone else? André.
No, I mean, there's literally nothing I'm allowed to say.
That's true.
I've had a lot of challenging scenes, and I want to be able to talk about them and work through it in some way, but I'm going to have to do that in
Yeah, we
therapy.
have a little dog collar, and if we say the wrong thing, J.J. Abrams will push a button and we'll get a little mild electric shock. So I'm sorry for the codes of secrecy.
They told me they would pull our fingernails out.
Well, maybe it's just varied per person with how much they think it's going to spoil. Well, what can you say, again, without spoilers? What is your biggest hope of what you get to do this season? Without spoilers.
I hope it all works. They're just these wonderful actors, and we've not worked together yet, but we have, the rest of us here. And it's been wonderful, and I just hope it all works, so do your best, Dusty, Sam.
We'll try.
No pressure.
They're great writers, by the way.
We love all the characters, and we want things to work out for the characters too, but they don't
always
always
work out.
Stephen
Stephen King more like.
But they are torturing us.
What has it been like filming in Maine, actually? Or Massachusetts?
So yeah, we're filming in Massachusetts, which has been a great experience. We're actually the first TV show to film there since Fenixer for Hire.
Yeah, it's been like 25 or 30 years.
Yeah, so it's really great. I mean, they've shot a bunch of features in Massachusetts, obviously, but shooting a TV show has been great, and I think it was really important to us that we shoot New England for New England, that it was not, that obviously there's lots of great places to shoot in Canada and around the country, but that if you're going to create Stephen King's world and really give it a sense of place, you want it to feel like New England. You want it to be New England, to be able to turn the camera in every direction and see New England.
So, before we turn it over to the audience questions, can we go down the line and have each person give a one-word tease about Castle Rock Season 1 from what you filmed so far? Just one word. One word.
Should I start?
You can start.
Oh my God.
Terrifying. I'll take the easy one. Delicious.
That is alarming.
Twisted.
Mysterious.
Nicole?
That's a very good one.
That's I would say surprising, because I think it's, the show's funny too. By the way, you can laugh in a world that is horrifying, and so I hope that it will confound some expectations too.
I almost said funny, but I got scared that everyone would be like, that's not right.
No funny.
I mean, I think there are no wrong answers, and certainly humor in the dark thing is always delightful.
And it's heartfelt.
It's everything to all people.
All things.
From what we're saying.
The best shows often are. So let's start with our first question.
Beep Beep Richie. How much did you collaborate with Mr. King on the series there?
Well, we started the whole project by first going and gathering up America's #1 Stephen King fan, J.J. Abrams, and talking to J.J. about the idea of doing Castle Rock. And so once we kind of all decided we wanted to do it together, that we went collectively to Stephen. And Stephen has been incredibly supportive. He's been open to all kinds of changes and improvisations, and also allowing us to use characters, some of these iconic characters and locations that we never thought we'd have the chance to use. And so he's been incredibly supportive and really a great collaborator.
Well, and I imagine other people have approached him about doing a show like this. Have you heard anything about what?
We were told that we were not the first Oliver Twist coming to him with our hands out, asking to set a show or a story in this world, and that he'd been precious with allowing somebody to do that before. So we feel very, very lucky that we got to have the keys to the most terrorized city in America.
Hi, my question is for Bill, which I'm sure you know because I've been staring at you this whole panel. It's not weird, you're here. You're never at cons. So I wanted to know, since I'd love to be able to ask you about your character, but you're not allowed to say anything, and this is your second time acting in a long-form television series adapted for a streaming platform. So what do you find most creatively satisfying about playing material out in that format? And then also, when you research into reading Stephen King's books, do you read them in English or Swedish?
English. I like to read whatever, if I can read who the author, his own words, without them being translated. So Swedish book is in Swedish and English. I think the streaming, we're doing an anthology show in 10 hours. I kind of grew up seeing television become what it is today. When I was, I remember being 15 and sort of watching The Sopranos, and when that shift, really major shift happened, and to what it is today. And I think for novels, or for writers, I guess, there's the 10-hour or the TV show format is sort of the only thing that can compete with a novel itself. You can go into really, delve deep into characters and developments, and as opposed to just 2 hours or an hour and a half movie. I've always been intrigued by it, and I especially like the miniseries format because there's a conclusion to this mystery that we've started, and some shows tend to just prolong that mystery until they seem very confused to what it is in the first place, and you just end up with 5 seasons of it just becomes diluted towards the end. So we have something here that beginning and it's a middle and it's an end, and there's a progression, there's a character, huge character development from my character. I can tell you that much, that he starts in one place, ends up somewhere completely different. It really is, I think, for an actor, such an amazing format to really delve deep into. 2 episodes is a feature film, so we're essentially making 5 feature films here in terms of material, and it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like a cast of kids, so what's really the difference, if there is a difference, between working with a cast of kids and working with a cast of adults?
They're older. the kids in that movie they were such professionals, and I think it's important in raising kids or being around kids that you treat them with the respect that you would treat an adult. And that's what we did with that movie. So we listened to all their, ideas and encouraged them to be who they are and respect them for their minds. And in return, we got the amazing performances that we got in that movie because of it. They were free and they were encouraged to be who they are. So I felt that, there's actors are, you need to figure out whoever you work with, right? It's like it's a ping pong game. You sort of get to know each other and you figure that out. And whether it's a kid or not, it's sort of irrelevant sometimes.
Hi, I'm Eliam from Argentina. First, Bill, we love your Pennywise. May I have you, we made an independent movie magazine. You are the cover, would I give you the magazine?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, thank you.
Well, the question is, which is, for all the panel, your King's favorite story?
It's a great question. I'll start with my kind of one that I always go back to again and again, which is The Stand. I love The Stand, and I think to Bill's point, the novel, the 1,000-page novel that is The Stand. I mean, obviously they've adapted it and going to adapt it again, but it's like that's why doing a TV show of Stephen King is so great, because you get that nuance.
Carrie.
I say Carrie.
I told him to say.
I've read pretty much everything, and for some reason the one that has really stuck with me is Pet Cemetery. It's so good.
Yeah, Pet Sematary was the first that I read, and it totally scarred me for life. So, but I think for me, I might say it's sort of a weird choice because it is not one of the uncanny or terrifying stories. But I think The Body is such an extraordinary piece, and it just tests the idea that we sort of can forget this because he haunts our nightmares, but he's one of the great contemporary character writers, and so. And I think it's possible to explore the depth of his character writing in a slightly different way if you have the canvas of 10 episodes than you can sometimes when you're writing a 2-hour movie. So it's been fun to try to emulate.
Thank you.
There are a lot of you still want to ask questions, so if we can just keep to questions for the cast and crew, that'd be great.
Okay, and it could be open to anybody, but what is it like being a horror actor?
I don't think I don't approach it any different than any other genre. Whatever, if it's a horrific scene or a lovely scene or a funny scene, I think I sort of approach it the same way. How about you guys?
Me too.
Same. I don't see there being a difference.
Yeah, and anything that's well written, I think, has elements of a lot of different. There's some humor, there's some tragedy, there's some horror. That's the thing that makes you, So you're just sort of playing the intention and the reality of it.
Thank you. Do you find you guys actually make more jokes offset between takes when you're filming a darker scene, or do you try to stay in the mood? We're funny all the time.
I've been too tired for jokes.
That's awesome though.
Hey guys, I'm Jenna. It's really exciting to be here and see you guys. Huge fan. This is for the actors, and it's actually kind of piggybacking off of that last question. I was wondering if you guys have any routines or rituals that you do that are unique or quirky to get into a role, and then if you have anything that you do to decompress and sort of get back to yourself.
I mean, I think probably every actor has their own process in terms of what it takes to get ready for a role or for a scene. They probably won't tell you because it's usually secret on some level, or personal to them on some level. But I think at the end of the day, it's, you guys, for me, it's asking a lot of questions and figuring out what the right question is to ask. Who am I? Where am I? What do I want? What's in the way of what I want? What am I willing to risk to get what I want? Or will I feel like if I do get, you know, and on and on and on. That's sort of where I started.
I don't know. I mean, just try to be that, crawl inside of that character, and I try not to let go of it until the end of the shoot. So this is particularly challenging because it's going on for a while, and I'm kind of trapped in that world, which I want to be trapped in. But you take. I tend to take part of each character with me for all eternity, I'm afraid. So, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's like I think like characters become old friends, you know, like the ones that you've done, and then you kind of, I mean, you've done this for so long, but like there's for me, sometimes I look back at characters that I played and I kind of miss them, like old buddies of mine. It's like, oh yeah, we had fun.
I actually love my character in this, Ruth. Love her. Love her.
I touch a lot of things. I know that sounds weird, but if it's like all right. If it's a house that's supposed to be my house, I'm supposed to have been there. If it's my car, I like straighten paintings and touch mantel pieces and just walk around touching it like a crazy person. So there you go.
No, that makes sense. Thanks, guys.
Hi. So my question's for Dustin and Sam, and I was wondering, so many of Stephen King's books have delved pretty deep into some supernatural themes, and they've gotten pretty bonkers, crazy stuff that happens. So I was wondering, how far is this show going to delve into supernatural themes and things out of the ordinary?
Dusty? I guess what I would say is that even to answer that question might be to spoil your experience in watching the show, but a lot of really terrible things have happened to the town of Castle Rock and to the denizens of that town, and trying to make sense out of them and figure out what is a supernatural event and what is just dumb luck, and who is a monster and who is a victim, and it is sort of part of the fabric of the mystery story that unfolds. But it's not lost on us that things tend to get pretty bonkers in Stephen King, and we like bonkers too, you know?
Hi, my name is Clara. My question is, with so many successful storylines in the Stephen King universe right now, was there anything that was off limits for the series?
You know, I think for us, we really came to it as wanting to tell a new story that felt really fundamentally Kingian, and so it wasn't so much a question of, can we tell this particular thread of Pennywise or Carrie or whatever sort of is your favorite Stephen King novel. It was more like, how can we tell a story that really honors the spirit of what Stephen King has been trying to do and what he's been doing over and over again in books for 40 years in different ways. A lot of the books have resonances where you see that they're sort of at some level telling the same story, and I think part of what we were trying to do was to honor that and yet to tell a new story that people could sort of watch unfold without any of the, without kind of a context for it even, except for what people love and know about Stephen King.
I think this is going to be the last question.
My question is for Bill, and what was your initial reaction when you found out that it was such a massive success that it is?
I was happy. I mean, I still haven't wrapped my head around it, really. You know, we worked really hard on that movie, and I worked really hard to try to, you know, make that character something, you know, new. And during that process, I was terrified of how people would, you know, think about it, and how people would, if they would hate it, or if I would just kind of let people down and all that. And I sort of decided not to think about that at all. So when it became such a huge success, I was like, oh, I can't let this affect me either, you know? So I was just like, I'm really happy that people enjoy it, but I don't want it to sort of, yeah, it's a really surreal thing that it became such a huge thing, but I don't know, I'm happy, I'm glad.
Thank you.
So before I let you guys go, would anyone here actually be willing to live in Castle Rock? Raise your hand. So.
It's a really tough real estate market out there these days, so sometimes it feels like maybe it would be a good idea to try to buy in Castle Rock.
So you can get a lot of house for a little money in Castle Rock. So
Maybe not for a long time, though.
that's right, short-term residency.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here, and be sure to watch Castle Rock.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much
for coming.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Castle Rock panel this afternoon as part of our Warner Brothers television takeover. We are moving straight on to our next panel. That's right. We are moving immediately to our next panel, so stay right where you are. You already have the best seat in the house. We are clearing that area right now and are headed into our final panel for the Hammerstein Ballroom this afternoon. Do I have some Gotham fans in the house? Then let's get straight into it. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Welcome to the stage, Mark Klein.
Hey everybody, I'm Mark.